It started recording for some reason.
Hi, YouTube.
You just decided to start recording. That's pretty interesting. Are you watching us
on a child's television show where like the camera comes in?
I was literally just sticking my tongue out and going blah, 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 trying to loosen it up because we're gonna finish this book tonight, and I figured,
look, we're all here.
We'd here. All be here.
Hello.
So yeah, we only have. Technically, we have like 4 chapters.
It's mostly my chest.
But it's 3 of the chapters are like 5 words long. So I was looking at it and I was like, do I really want to do 2-minute videos the next couple nights of chapter 9? Alice jumped up and down and then fell over.
Well,
Alice had a strange little fit.
Maybe that's all Lewis Carroll wrote that night. What if it's just every chapter is just like, I wrote a little bit before bed, and that's a chapter.
At the end of the book, I really started phoning it in. I don't know.
People love it, though.
Alice saw a big pink thing, and...
We don't know, but in the last chapter, because you didn't read it, we do have a... We could have tea.
We could have itty-bitty tiny tea.
YouTube, can you believe this?
Look, we're on theme.
Okay, but you're not showing...
Now it's gone!
Put that in your... He didn't even show the pretty side with the little rose on it.
Beautiful.
I found that upstairs. It was very cute. It's a whole little tea set. It's been in the background of a few... Would you stop eating the tea set?
You also have no idea what that's made out of, so...
Or where that's been.
Or where it's
everywhere.
Been. Upstairs, presumably.
Yeah, in a box for about 40 million years.
Maybe longer.
And then, in my mouth.
Yeah, no, that's right. I think you do know where it's been.
All right, so we're gonna have a chaotic reading tonight to finish this book, but that's on brand with this entire book.
Chapter Roman numeral Queen Alice.
Okay. IX, X is 10. With the I in front of it, you subtract 1 from 10, so this is chapter 9.
Chapter X.
I think it made less sense after you explained it. Why?
I don't know, because the Romans were Romans. Anyway, in the last chapter, we met the White Knight, and he escorted Alice to the next square, where she found out she had a crown on her head.
I do remember hearing that.
That's pretty cool. So that's how we're gonna basically end the book, because that was her whole goal, was to become a queen.
And then I became God.
And then I ruled over the peasants of this land.
My wrath was swift, my justice immediate, my cruelty large. My lightning bolts.
Let's hope not. All right,
Lightning.
we're going to try to keep serious during most of this, so everybody...
This is a very serious book, as we know.
I wouldn't go that far. This is a very fun book, but we are going to read... I might periodically just pass the book over to Aaron.
And I'll be here making facial expressions, probably.
Probably. Enjoy Soleil's facial expressions as we finish up Lewis Carroll's Through the Looking Glass.
Ooh.
Also, I'm really small compared to you two.
You look smaller on camera because of the way our sitting setup is.
Mm-hmm. Maybe.
But it does make me look huge, which is funny.
It does. You are physically the closest to the camera.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we're going to begin, now that I have smeared my glasses,
Mood.
with Chapter 9, Queen Alice.
Gasp.
Well, this is grand, said Alice. I never expected I should be a queen so soon. And I'll tell you what it is, Your Majesty, she went on, in a severe tone. She was always rather fond of scolding herself. I'll never do for you to be lolling about on the grass like that. Queens have to be dignified, you know. So she got up and walked about, rather stiffly at first, as she was afraid the crown might come off, but she comforted herself with the thought that there was nobody to see her. And if I really am a queen, she said as she sat down again, I shall be able to manage it quite well in time. Everything was happening so oddly that she didn't feel a bit surprised at finding the Red Queen and the White Queen sitting close to her, one on each side. She would have liked very much to ask them how they came there, but she feared it would not be quite civil. However, there would be no harm, she thought, in asking if the game was over. Please, would you tell me, she began timidly to the Red Queen.
Alice, you're queen.
Speak when you're spoken to!
The Queen sharply interrupted her.
No!
But if everybody obeyed that rule, said Alice, who was always ready for a little argument, and if you only spoke when you were spoken to, and the other person always waited for you to begin, then nobody would ever say anything, so that...
Ridiculous!
cried the Queen.
Why don't you see... Why don't you see, child?
Here she broke off with a frown, and, after thinking for a moment, suddenly changed the subject of the conversation.
What do you mean by if you really are a queen? What right have you to call yourself so? You can't be a queen, you know, until you've passed the proper examination, and the sooner we begin it, the better.
I only said if, Alice replied in a piteous tone. The two queens looked at each other, and the Red Queen remarked with a shudder,
She says she only said, ew.
But she said a great deal more than that, the White Queen. The White Queen moaned.
But she said a great deal more than that, the White Queen moaned, wringing her hands.
Why is this hard for me to see?
It's because the
Tiny
text
print.
is tiny.
This is where YouTube finds out that I have bad eyesight. I don't know
That's
if you
okay.
could...
You just mime my words.
Okay.
But she said a great deal more than that, the White Queen moaned, wringing her hands. Oh, ever so much more than that.
So you did, you know?
The Red Queen said to Alice.
Always speak the truth. Think before you speak and write it down afterwards.
I'm sure I didn't mean, Alice was beginning, but the Red Queen interrupted her impatiently.
That's just what I complain of. You should have meant. What do you suppose is the use of a child without any meaning? Even a joke should have some meaning. And a child's more important than a joke, I hope. You couldn't deny that, even if you tried with both hands.
I don't deny things with my hands, Alice objected.
Put 'em up. Nobody said you did.
Said the Red Queen.
I said you couldn't if you tried.
She's in a state of mind, said the White Queen, that she wants to deny something, only she doesn't know what to deny.
A nasty, vicious temper,
The Red Queen remarked. And then there was an uncomfortable silence for a minute or two, during which I will show you this picture while these guys comment whatever it is Soleil was about to comment.
Does anyone else, get in the comments if you feel like when reading or listening to Lewis Carroll, that you have no idea what's happening at any point.
I
I
feel
think
like
that is the point.
I'm not sure that there's actually a plot.
This feels like a child had a dream because they were nervous about a test at school where they thought that in order to achieve some kind of greatness, they needed to be mentored by people in their lives. But I don't know why the White Queen is like an old lady with dementia, and the Red Queen is like someone's really mean grandma, unless this is a very specifically written to her about someone, Lewis.
Anyway, back to the story. The Red Queen broke the silence by saying to the White Queen,
I invite you to Alice's dinner party this afternoon.
The White Queen smiled feebly and said, And I invite you. I didn't know that I was to have a party at all, said Alice. But if there is to be one, I think I ought to invite the guests.
We gave you the opportunity of doing it,
The Red Queen remarked.
but I dare say you've not had many lessons in manners yet.
Manners are not taught in lessons, said Alice. Lessons teach you to do sums and things of that sort.
Alice, you
Can you do addition? Said the White Queen. What's 1 and 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 1? I don't know, said Alice. I lost count.
If you were on the internet before
one and one, that's 8.
Okay,
before
well.
a certain
No, wait, that's 7.
decade, this is basically how everyone talked.
Mm-hmm. It's the lead. Where am I? She can't do addition.
The Red Queen interrupted.
Can you do subtraction? Take 9 from 8.
9 from 8. I can't, you know, Alice said very readily. But she can't do subtraction, the White Queen said. Can you do division? Divide a loaf by a knife. What's the answer to that? I suppose, Alice began, but the Red Queen answered for her.
Bread and butter, of course, try another. Subtraction sum. Take a bone from a dog. What remains?
Alice thought.
The
The bone wouldn't remain, of course, if I took it, and the dog wouldn't remain. It would come to bite me, and I'm sure that I shouldn't remain,
Then you think nothing would remain.
said the Red Queen. I think that's the answer,
Wrong as usual.
said the Red
The
Queen.
dog's temper would remain.
But I don't see how,
Why, look here.
the Red Queen cried.
The dog would lose its temper, wouldn't it?
Perhaps it would,
Then, if the dog went away, its temper would remain.
the Queen said triumphantly. Alice said, as gravely as she could, they might go different ways. But she couldn't help thinking to herself, what nonsense we're talking.
You know, I think you're starting to figure it out, Alice.
Think about it.
She can't do sums a bit, the Queen said together with great emphasis. Can you do sums? Said Alice, suddenly turning on the White Queen, for she didn't like being found fault with so much. The Queen gasped and shut her eyes. I can do addition, she said, if you give me time, but I can't do subtraction under any circumstances.
Oh, of course you know your ABC,
said the Red Queen. To be sure I do, said Alice. So do I, the White Queen whispered. We'll often say it over together, dear. And I'll tell you a secret. I can read words of 1 letter. Isn't that grand? However, don't be discouraged. You'll come to it in time. The Red Queen began again.
Can you answer useful questions?
No.
She said.
How is bread made?
I know that, Alice said eagerly. You take some flour. Where do you pick the flour? The White Queen asked. In a garden or in the hedges? Well, it isn't picked at all, said Alice. It's ground. How many acres of ground? Said the White Queen. You mustn't leave out so many things.
She'll be feverish after so... Oh, sorry. Fan her head.
The Red Queen said anxiously.
She'll be feverish after so much thinking.
So they set to work, and they fanned her with bunches of leaves until she had to beg them to leave off. It was blowing her hair about so.
She's all right again now,
said the Red Queen.
Do you know languages? What's the French for fiddle-dee-dee?
Fiddle-dee-dee's not English.
Whoever said it was?
Alice thought that she saw a way out of the difficulty this time. "If you'll tell me what language fiddle-dee-dee is, I'll tell you the French for it," she said triumphantly. But the Red Queen drew herself up rather stiffly and said,
I wish queens never asked questions.
"Wrong line."
Shoot. Queens never make bargains.
"I wish queens never ask questions," thought Alice. "Don't let us quarrel," the White Queen said in an anxious tone. "What is the cause of lightning?" "The cause of lightning," Alice said decidedly, for she felt certain about this, "is the thunder. No," she corrected herself. "I meant the other way."
It's too late to correct it,
said the Red Queen.
"Once you've said a thing, that fixes it, and you must take the consequences."
"Which reminds me," the White Queen said, looking down and nervously clasping and unclasping her hands. "We had such a thunderstorm last Tuesday. I mean, one of the last set of Tuesdays, you know." Alice was puzzled. "In our country," she said, "there's only one day at a time." The Red Queen said,
"That's a poor way of doing things. Now, here we mostly have days and nights, 2 or 3 at a time, and sometimes in the winter we take as many as 5 at a time, and sometimes, oh dear, I got lost there, 5 nights together for warmth, you know."
"Are 5 nights warmer than one night?" Alice asked.
5 times as warm, of course. Oh.
"But shouldn't they be 5 times as cold by the same rule?"
Just so.
cried the Red Queen.
5 times as warm and 5 times as cold. Just as I'm 5 times as rich as you are and 5 times as clever.
Alice sighed and gave it up. It's exactly like a riddle with no answer, she thought. "Humpty Dumpty saw it too," the White Queen went on in a low voice, as if she were talking to herself. "He came to the door with a corkscrew in his hand."
"What did he want?"
said the Red Queen. "He said he would come in," the White Queen went on, "because he was looking for a hippopotamus. Now, as it happened, there wasn't such a thing in the house that morning." "Is there usually?" said Alice in an astonished tone. "Well, only on Thursdays," said the Queen.
If you're having multiple Thursdays at a time, that's multiple hippopotamuses.
"I know what he came for," said Alice. "He wanted to punish the fish because—" But here the White Queen began again. "It was such a thunderstorm, you can't think."
"She never could, you know,"
said the Red Queen. "And a part of the roof came off, and ever so much thunder got in, and it went rolling and rolling around the room in great lumps and knocking over the tables and things till I was so frightened I couldn't remember my own name."
What is your name?
Alice thought to herself, "I never should try to remember my name in the middle of an accident. Where would be the use of that?" But she didn't say this out loud for fear of hurting the poor Queen's feelings.
"Your Majesty must excuse her,"
the Red Queen said to Alice, taking one of the White Queen's hands in her own and gently stroking it.
"She means well, but she can't help saying foolish things as a general rule."
The White Queen looked timidly at Alice, who felt she ought to say something kind, but couldn't really think of anything at the moment.
Me either, Alice.
"She never was really well brought up,"
the Red Queen went on.
"but it's amazing how good-tempered she is. Pat her on the head and see how pleased she'll be."
But this was more than Alice had courage to do.
I've been patted.
Bark! A little kindness and putting her hair in papers would do wonders with her.
In papers?
The White Queen gave a deep sigh and laid her head on Alice's shoulder. "I'm so sleepy," she moaned.
What a mood. She's tired, poor thing,
said the Red Queen.
Smooth her hair, lend her your nightcap, and sing her a soothing lullaby.
I haven't got a nightcap with me, said Alice, as she tried to obey the first direction. And I don't know any soothing lullabies.
I must do it myself, then,
said the Red Queen, and she began.
Hush, my lady, in Alice's lap, till the feast's ready, we've time for a nap. When the feast's over, we'll go to the ball, Red Queen and White Queen and Alice and all. And now you know the words,
she added, as she put her head down on Alice's other shoulder.
Just sing it through to me. I'm getting sleepy too.
And in another moment, both queens were fast asleep and snoring loud. And we have a picture. That's terrifying.
Snore.
Okay, stop snoring. What am I to do? Said Alice, looking about in great perplexity as first one round head and then the other rolled down from her shoulder and lay like a heavy lump in her lap. Do not do that. I don't think it ever happened before that anyone had to take care of two sleeping queens at once. No, not in all the history of England. It couldn't, you know, because there never was more than one queen at a time. Please do wake up, you heavy things, she said in an impatient tone, but there was no answer but a gentle snoring.
No one's ever had to take care of two queens.
The snoring got more distinct every minute and sounded more like a tune. At last she could even make out the words, and she listened so eagerly that when the two great heads suddenly vanished from her lap, she hardly missed them. She was standing in front of an arched doorway over which the words Queen Alice were written in large letters, and on each side of the arch there was a bell handle. One was marked Visitor's Bell and the other Servant's Bell. I'll wait till the song's over, thought Alice. Then I'll ring the... Which bell must I ring? She went on, very much puzzled by the names. I'm not a visitor, and I'm not a servant. There ought to be one marked Queen, you know. Just then, the door opened a little way, and a creature with a long beak put its head out for a moment and said, No admittance until the week after next, and shut the door again with a bang. Alice knocked and rang in vain for a long time, but at last a very old frog who was sitting under a tree got up and hobbled slowly towards her. He was dressed in bright yellow, and he had enormous boots on. What is it now? The frog said in a deep whisper. Alice turned round, ready to find fault with anybody. Where is the servant whose business it is to answer the door? She began. Which door? Said the frog. Alice almost stamped with irritation at the slow drawl he was speaking in. This door, of course. The frog looked at the door with his large, dull eyes for a moment. Then he went nearer and rubbed it with his thumb as if he were trying to see whether the paint would come off. Then he looked at Alice. To answer the door, he said. What's it been asking about? He was so hoarse that Alice could hardly understand him.
What is it?
I don't know what you mean, she said. I speaks English, don't I? The frog said. Or are you deaf? What did the door ask you? Nothing, said Alice. I've been knocking on it. Shouldn't do that. Shouldn't do that, the frog muttered.
Rude.
It vexes it, you know. Then he went up, and he gave the door a kick with one of his great feet. You let it alone, he panted out, as he hobbled back to his tree. And it'll let you alone, you know. And we have a picture of this amazing scene.
It's beautiful.
I'm gonna kick that door.
Get in the comments if you want to get a tattoo of the door-kicking frog.
I do like this.
I do like the frog.
I do like Mr. Frog from Mr. Tug and...
Mr. Tog?
Mr. Frog and Toad.
At that moment, the door was flung open and a shrill voice was heard singing,
Oh dear. To the looking glass world, it's what wait. To the looking glass world, it was Alice. To the looking glass world, it was Alice that said, I've a scepter in hand, I've a crown on head. Let the looking glass creatures, whatever they be, come and dine with the Red Queen, the White Queen, and me.
and then hundreds of voices joined in the chorus.
I can't do hundreds of voices, but I can
we can do it together.
Then fill up the glasses as quick as you can, and sprinkle the table with buttons and bran. Put cats in the coffee and mice in the tea, and welcome Queen Alice with 30 times 3.
Why is it still math? Someone tell me that!
Alice is really anxious about her math.
Then followed a confused noise of cheering, and Alice thought to herself, 30 times 3 makes 90. I wonder if anyone's counting. After a minute, there was silence again, and the same shrill voice sang another verse.
Oh, looking glass creatures, quoth Alice, draw near, 'tis an honor to see me, a favour to hear, 'tis a privilege higher to have dinner and tea, along with Red Queen and White Queen and me.
Then came the chorus again.
Then fill up your glasses with treacle and ink, or anything else that is pleasant to drink. Mix sand with the cider and wool with the wine, and welcome Queen Alice with 90 times 9.
90 times 9? Alice said in despair. Oh, that'll never be done. I better go in at once. And in she went. And there was a dead silence the moment she appeared. Alice glanced nervously along the table as she walked up the large hall and noticed there were about 50 guests of all kinds. Some were animals, some birds. There were even a few flowers among them. I'm glad that they came without waiting to be asked, she thought. I should never have known who were the right people to invite. There were 3 chairs at the head of the table. The red and white queens had already taken 2 of them, but the middle one was empty. Alice sat down, rather uncomfortable in the silence, and longed for someone to begin speaking. At last the Red Queen began.
You've missed the soup and fish,
she said.
Put on the joint.
And the waiters set a leg of mutton in front of Alice, who looked at it rather anxiously, as she had never had to carve a joint before.
Oh, I have. You look a little shy. Let me introduce you to that leg of mutton,
said the Red Queen.
Alice Mutton. Mutton Alice.
The leg of mutton got up in the dish and made a little bow to Alice, and Alice returned the bow, not knowing whether to be frightened or amused.
Did you
like
still
that.
eat it?
Don't like that. Don't like that.
We have a bowing leg of lamb.
Yeah, if you saw my face previously looking at the book super, baffled, I was trying to figure out what that was.
That's a leg of lamb.
That's...
taking a bow.
I don't like that
Horrible.
he has little shoes on.
May I give you a slice? Alice said, taking up the knife and fork and looking from one queen to the other.
Certainly not,
said the Red Queen decidedly.
It isn't etiquette to cut anyone you've been introduced to. Remove the joint.
And the waiters carried it off and brought a large plum pudding in its place.
Is the plum pudding also a sentient individual
If you
person?
ask it.
Okay,
I
I'll talk to her.
don't want to be introduced to the pudding, please, said Alice rather hastily, or we shall get no dinner at all. May I give you some? She said. But the Red Queen looked sulky and growled,
Pudding, Alice. Alice pudding.
Remove the pudding!
Ah,
And the waiters took it away so quickly that Alice couldn't even bow to it. However, she didn't see why the Red Queen should be the only one giving orders, so as an experiment, she called out, "Waiter, bring back the pudding!" And there it was again, in a moment, just like a conjuring trick. It was so large she couldn't help feeling a little shy with it, as she had been with the mutton. However, she conquered her shyness with great effort and cut a slice and handed it to the Red Queen.
What impatience!
"Impertinence,"
Oh.
cried the pudding.
Oh, sorry.
What
impertinence!
cried the pudding.
I wonder how you'd like it if I were to cut a slice out of you, you creature!
It spoke in a thick, suety sort of voice. And Alice hadn't a word to say to it in reply. She could only sit and look at it and gasp. "Red Queen,"
Make a remark.
said the Red Queen.
It's ridiculous to leave all the conversation to the pudding.
Do you know, I've had such a quantity of poetry repeated to me today, Alice began, a little frightened at finding the moment she opened her lips there was dead silence and every eye was fixed on her. "And it's a very curious thing, I think. Every poem was about fishes in some way. Do you know why they're so fond of fishes around here?"
Fishes.
She was speaking to the Red Queen, whose answer was a little wide of the mark.
As to fishes,
she said very slowly and solemnly, putting her mouth close to Alice's ear.
Her White Majesty knows a lovely riddle, all in poetry, all about fishes. Shall she repeat it?
"Her Majesty is very kind to mention it," the White Queen murmured into Alice's other ear, in a voice like the cooing of a pigeon. "It would be such a treat. May I?" "Please do," said Alice politely. The White Queen laughed with delight and patted Alice's cheek, and then she began. "First, the fish must be caught. That is easy. A baby, I think, could have caught it. Next, the fish must be bought." I'm the White Queen, darn it.
It's hard to not get involved.
That's true. "That is easy. A penny, I think, would have bought it. Now cook me the fish. That is easy, and will not take more than a minute. Let it lie in a dish. That is easy, because it already is in it. Bring it here. Let me sup. It is easy to set such a dish on the table. Take the dish to cover up. Ah, that is hard. I fear I'm unable. For it holds it like glue. Holds the lid to the dish where it lies in the middle, which is easiest to do. Undish, cover the fish, or discover the riddle."
What?
And now we know the White Queen's problem.
Take a minute and think about it, then guess.
Said the Red Queen.
Meanwhile, we'll drink to your health. Queen Alice's health!
She screamed at the top of her voice, and all the guests began drinking directly, and very queerly they managed it. Some of them put their glasses upon their heads like extinguishers and drank all that trickled down their faces. Others upset the decanters and drank more of the wine as it ran off the edges of the table, and 3 of them, who looked like kangaroos, scrambled into the dish of roast mutton and began eagerly lapping up the gravy like pigs in a trough, thought Alice.
Okay.
"You want to return thanks in a neat speech,"
said the Red Queen, frowning at Alice as she spoke. "We must support you, you know," the White Queen whispered, as Alice got up to do it quite obediently, but a little frightened. "Thank you very much," she whispered in reply, "but I can do quite well without."
"That wouldn't be at all the thing,"
the Red Queen said very decidedly, so Alice submitted with good grace. "And they did push so," she said afterwards when she was telling her sister the history of the feast. "You would have thought they wanted to squeeze me flat." In fact, it was rather difficult for her to keep in her place while she made her speech. The two queens pushed her so, one on each side, and they almost lifted her into the air. "I rise to return thanks," Alice began. And she really did rise as she spoke, several inches, but she got hold of the edge of the table and managed to pull herself down. "Take care of yourselves!" screamed the White Queen, seizing Alice's hair with both of her hands. "Something's going to happen!" And then, as Alice afterwards described it, all sorts of things happened in a moment. The candles all grew up to the ceiling, looking something like a bed of rushes with fireworks on top. As to the bottles, they each took a pair of plates, which they hastily fitted on as wings, and so, with forks for legs, went fluttering about in every direction. And quite like birds they look, Alice thought to herself, or at least as well as she could in the confusion that was starting. At this moment, she heard a horse laugh at her side and turned to see what was the matter with the White Queen, but instead of the queen, there was the leg of mutton sitting on the chair. "Here I am," cried a voice from the soup tureen, and Alice turned again, just in time to see the queen's broad, good-natured face grinning at her for a moment over the edge of the tureen before disappearing into the soup. There was not a moment to be lost. Already several of the guests were lying down in the dishes, and the soup ladle was walking up the table towards Alice's chair, beckoning to her impatiently to move out of the way.
Alice, what did you eat?
"I can't stand this any longer," Alice cried as she jumped up and seized the tablecloth with both hands. One good pull, and the plates, dishes, guests, and candles came crashing down together in a heap on the floor. "And as for you," she cried, turning fiercely upon the Red Queen, who she considered the cause of all the mischief, but the queen was no longer at her side. She had suddenly dwindled down to the size of a little doll and was now on the table, merrily running round and round after her own shawl that was trailing behind her. At any other time, Alice would have felt surprised at this, but she was far too much excited to be surprised at anything now. "As for you," she repeated, catching hold of the little creature, in the very act of jumping over a bottle which had just lit upon the table, "I'll shake you into a kitten, I will." And that was the end of the chapter.
Alice, I'm worried about you, girl.
She's somehow
Collecting thoughts.
very violent.
Okay, we collected our thoughts, such
Sort
as
of.
they are. I honestly feel like I might be taking whatever it is that Alice... Now, you had a good theory that this is just a stress anxiety dream.
Alice is just having a stress dream about, like, math and, like literature and poetry.
Yeah, but then she's also hungry occasionally,
Yeah.
which results in whatever that was.
Sometimes she's hungry, and sometimes she gets so freaked out by the, like, concept of responsibilities that she has little mini panic attacks in her dreams, where suddenly, like, the sweet-natured White Queen's in the soup, like, "Goodbye forever!"
That was...
She's in the soup! Ah!
That
It's in the
was...
mock turtle soup.
She's in the mock turtle soup.
You know, it's really weird to me because
That explains why we didn't see him.
it
in
almost
this book.
feels like this one is choppier
Mhm.
than Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. This one feels more like a dream.
Yeah.
A very weird dream. In just that way that you jump from place to place in dreams. And
I
it
know.
makes perfect sense when you're dreaming.
I know I've said this in the car, but I can't remember if I said this for a video. But it very much feels like Alice in Wonderland is like a child's like imaginative recollection of some fantasticized story from their childhood where they like wandered around in the woods, but when they come home they tell you something ridiculous and like cartoonish but very innocent and like magical. And then through the looking glass feels like Alice is like just having a really bad nap.
Alice's
she, like-
bad nap.
where she was like wandering home, got really stressed out, fell asleep off the side of the road near a creek, and just had like 12 sleeping panic attacks where like queens melted in soup and like I can't even remember what
It's
Tweedledee
been a
and
lot.
Tweedledum chased her around like schoolyard bullies.
And walruses committed genocide
Yeah,
on
and-
baby clams.
And walruses wept while greedily consuming children's living bodies.
Isn't that
Uh,
wild?
That is wild. All right, we're going to finish this book, though. So,
We're almost there.
almost there, everybody.
Ah!
And by we,
And-
I mean ye. I'm just here to look pretty.
Oh.
And she does shake it into...
Yeah, we'll be
can't-
showing you the pictures in a moment because this is chapter 10, Shaking. She took her off the table as she spoke and shook her backwards and forwards with all of her might. The Red Queen made no resistance whatsoever. Only her face grew very small and her eyes got large and green, and still, as Alice went on shaking her, she kept getting shorter and fatter and softer and rounder, and it really was a kitten after all. And that was chapter 11 as well.
One half a sentence.
Hold on, let me get this closer so that you can
Yeah, there
see
you go.
this horrible...
Awful depiction.
And
And then it's just a fat little cat.
It's a very cute kitten.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
then... but like that first one is
Oh, yeah.
real rough.
The Red Queen's rough to look at some days.
But that was both chapter 10 and 11, and now we're going to move on
Aren't you also spoiled?
to chapter 12, Which Dreamed It? Your Red Majesty shouldn't purr so loud, Alice said, rubbing her eyes and speaking to the kitten respectfully, yet with a bit of severity. You woke me out of, oh, such a nice dream. And you've been along with me, Kitty, all through the looking-glass world. Did you know that, dear? It is a very inconvenient habit of kittens, Alice had once made that remark, that whatever you say to them, they always just purr. If they would only purr for yes and mew for no, or any rule of that sort, she had once said, so that one could keep up a conversation. But how can you talk to a person if they always say the same thing? On this occasion, the kitten only purred, and it was impossible to guess whether it meant yes or no. So, Alice hunted among the chessmen on the table till she found the Red Queen, and then she went down on her knees on the hearth rug and put the kitten and the queen to look at each other. Now, Kitty, she said, clapping her hands triumphantly, confess that that was what you turned into. But it wouldn't look at it, she said later when she was explaining things to her sister. It turned away its head and pretended not to see, but it looked a little ashamed of itself, so it must have been the Red Queen. You sit up a bit more stiffly, dear, Alice cried with a merry laugh, and curtsy while you're thinking what to do, what to purr. It saves time, remember. And then she caught it up and gave it a little kiss, just in honor of its having been the Red Queen. Snowdrop, my pet, she said, looking over her shoulder at the white kitten, who was still patiently undergoing its toilet. When will Dinah have finished with your White Majesty, I wonder? That must be the reason that you were so untidy in my dream. Dinah, do you know that you're scrubbing a White Queen? Really, that's most disrespectful of you. And what did Dinah turn into, I wonder? She said, as she settled comfortably down with one elbow on the rug and her chin in her hand, watching the kittens. Tell me, Dinah, did you turn to Humpty Dumpty? I think you did. However, you'd better not mention it to your friends just yet, for I'm not sure. Oh, by the way, Kitty, if you had only really been with me in my dream, there was one thing you would have enjoyed. I had such a quantity of poetry said to me, and all about fishes. Tomorrow morning you shall have a real treat. All the time you're eating your breakfast, I will repeat the walrus and the carpenter to you, and then you can pretend that it's oysters. Now, Kitty, let's consider who it was that dreamed it all. This is a serious question, my dear, and you should not go on licking your paw like that, as if Dinah hadn't washed you this morning. You see, Kitty, it must have been either me or the Red King. He was a part of my dream, of course, but then I was a part of his dream, too. Was it the Red King, Kitty? You were his wife, my dear, so you should know. Oh, Kitty, do help to settle the matter. I'm sure that your paw can wait. But the provoking kitten only began on the other paw and pretended that it hadn't heard the question. So which do you think it was? And we have one final poem. Because that was the end of the chapter, and I'm giving it to Aaron to read.
A boat beneath a sunny sky, lingering onward dreamily, in the evening of July. Children three that nestle near, eager eye and willing ear, pleased a simple tale to hear. Long has paled that sunny sky, echoes fade and memories die, autumn frosts have slain July. Still she haunts me, phantom-wise, Alice moving under skies, never seen by waking eyes. Children yet the tale to hear, eager eye and willing ear, lovingly shall nestle near. In a wonderland that lie, dreaming as days go by, dreaming as summers die, ever drifting down the stream, lingering in the golden gleam. Life, what is but a dream? Oh, Lewis.
And that is the end of Through the Looking Glass and the end of our time with Lewis Carroll. That was an interesting book. I think we did most of our analyzing after the last chapter. That was...
It does have that, like, melting, like, dream quality.
Yeah.
Where it's, like, seamlessly fades from one scene to another.
It doesn't, though, because there were a couple chapters where it was so abrupt, which also felt like a dream.
Where it's like Alice turns a corner and it's just like, bap.
New scene.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's different now. She was, like, talking to someone, she turns a corner, now she's in a gift shop.
Yeah,
The White Queen's just like, I lost my shawl! Oh, you're gone.
Oh, dear.
I enjoyed this, though.
It was really
I
weird,
enjoyed
but
both
pretty
of
cool.
them. So,
Really
I'm
was.
not sure what movie we're going to watch on Saturday.
We have a bevy of options.
We do have several different Through the Looking Glasses. I'm going to research a little bit more. We might do the animated version, though.
Woo-hoo-hoo.
It's from Australia.
Australia.
G'day, mate. That was probably the
Australia.
worst
That
Australian
was...
ever.
I'm not even going to try an Australian
Well,
accent.
see, I did.
Kicking a dingo
Anyway.
style on a bobby.
I'm also going to have, probably tomorrow, or maybe after this video goes up, I don't know. Check my community page. There will be a poll for our next book,
Get
which
in the
we're
poll.
not going to start until Saturday. I don't know what I'm going to have up for my evening videos the next couple of days, but there'll be something there. It might just be cats.
Let
It
us
might be
know if
World
you
of
wanna see more
Warcraft.
live stream of World of Warcraft.
Who
Get in the
knows what it'll
comments.
be. But thank you so much for listening. I hope that you enjoyed our last super animated chapter. Don't guarantee we'll always do this, but it was kind of fun to do this time.
It's fun sometimes.
So thank you guys so much. Please do hit the thumbs up on your way out if you don't mind. It does always make me and Soul and even Aaron smile. And
If you want to make me smile more, hit the notification bell.
Mm-hmm.
and we will see you guys next time.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.